Welcome to SC1X Supply Chain Fundamentals. And so what we're going to do in this course is apply all of the techniques and methodologies that you've learned previously. Now recall, what we started with the supply chain is that it's all about managing flows. You have a customer and a supplier, and so you can think about the flow of information where someone places an order, and then you've got that physical flow that comes back of the actual product itself. And then hopefully you get paid, right? And so there's some money or financial transaction. And now also there's some information in between for these different exchanges. And so in this course, we're going to focus primarily, not exclusively, but primarily on this physical flow, because we're dealing with the logistics of things, the flow of materials. Now, this is the simple view of it, but we all know that there's actually a lot of interaction in your whole supply chain. So if this is you have your suppliers that are giving you product, and they in turn have their own suppliers, and then you have your customers, and then they distribute their product down, and you have this nice complicated supply chain or supply web that you've got to control or manage or operate within. And so everything we're going to do in this course deals with how you manage this complex operation. We'll start with something simple, but we'll try and make it more and more realistic. And what we're going to function on here is what we're going to work on are three areas: forecasting, inventory, and transportation. These are the things that we're going to work on. Now, the key word that we have across all of the topics that we will talk in this course is the word trade-off. And so everything we do in this course is a series of trade-offs, and it's mainly between money, financial costs, and what's known as level of service. How well you serve, how fast you serve, how often you have product there. So this whole idea of level of service and cost. And there's a series of other trade-offs that we have, and we'll focus on those. The way that we'll handle and make those trade-offs is we'll use what's known as a total cost equation. And so we're going to develop this equation over a series of weeks, and it's going to be a function of a bunch of different things. You can think of it being a function of the demand, the amount that you order, the lead time that it takes to actually get that product, the variability of that lead time, how variable it is or whether it's really deterministic, and a bunch of other things. And we'll spend a lot of time on that. And so we'll go into those in detail. But at the end of it, we're making a trade-off. And we're making that trade-off using this total cost equation. Okay, so what are we going to do this week? This week, we're going to start off first with some key concepts. And the first one we're going to focus on is what's known as push versus pull. And this is a core concept, and what it really means is at some point, if I'm making product, I'm pushing it out to the product, and I'm making it based on a forecast. So this is based on a forecast of demand. But at some point in that supply chain, I'm going to be making actions based on an order. Someone has actually ordered it and I do something, and that's what's called a pull. And this is done on an actual order. And so the point between the push and the pull is called the push-pull point. And we'll spend a lot of time here because depending on your supply chain, whether it's a push supply chain or a pull or probably some kind of hybrid, that changes how you forecast, how you manage your inventory, and how you manage your transportation. All right, the second key concept we're going to learn is known as segmentation. Segmentation is the key tool that you'll use to manage your supply chains. Because as you'll learn very quickly, there is no single supply chain. Every company has many different supply chains. Your customers are different, your suppliers are different, your products are different. And so you want to segment them and treat them differently. And what we'll be talking a lot about is what's known as an ABC analysis, where you break your products, your suppliers, your customers into categories. Your A customers, your B customers, and your C customers. And again, the reason why you do that is because you will treat them differently in terms of forecasting, inventory, and transportation. All right, the third key concept we're going to focus on, which you should be familiar with from previous class, is uncertainty. And what are we talking about here? Well, this is when you have any variability. Variability in demand, variability in supply, variability in processing. So we'll talk about different ways you can manage or deal with uncertainty. The second lesson, we're going to introduce forecasting because we're going to start working our way down these three main topics. And in forecasting, we're going to hit three big things to set the stage because we'll talk about this for the next several weeks. The first, we'll attack what I call truisms. And we all know these. People say, well, all forecasts are wrong. And this is true, but we'll talk about why that matters and what you can do about it. Another truism is if I have an aggregated forecast, it's better. Aggregated means if I forecast for many different things instead of an individual thing. It'll always get better as I aggregate. And this is an example of risk pooling, and we'll talk more about this as we go forward. Another truism is that a forecast for a shorter horizon is better than a longer horizon. I can probably predict the weather for tomorrow better than I can, say, a year from now. And so the shorter the horizon, the better. And so we'll talk about those and show how those play in to the ways that you can forecast. We'll introduce basic techniques and kind of classify them. And the main way I want to classify them in this lesson is the difference between a subjective and an objective technique. So an objective technique is one that uses history and uses data. Subjective uses opinions. And they both have a role, and I'll talk about how they fit together. And the last thing we want to do is talk about metrics. How do you measure your forecast? There's many different ways, and how you measure your forecast is very important because it feeds in to how you manage your inventory, which feeds into how you set up your transportation. So hopefully you get the point that everything ties together. We're going to be making trade-offs with this total cost equation, and we're going to do that to try to understand how supply chains work. All right, so watch all the videos, take the recitations, work the quick questions and the practice problems.